to everyone present here. I hope you all are doing well. With immense gratitude, I welcome you all to the second day of our national conference on the use of smart contracts in public procurement and supply chain. I would like to thank all the eminent speakers, dignitaries, and all the audience members for joining us today. So let's start our session. For the very first lecture will be given by Shri Deepak Lalan. Shri Deepak Lalan is Associate Director at Accenture, Bangalore, India. He served as the blockchain practice lead for Accenture Technology in India. He holds a master's degree in business administration from the University of Wales, specializing in international business. He has been associated with various projects like the SBI InTouch, SBI Buddy, Accenture Innovation Hub, Geological Survey of India, Online Core Business Integrated System, and the world's largest biometric-enabled national identification system, Aadhaar. So I request you, sir, to please come on the stage and address the audience.
Hey, good morning. It's good to see few of you have already come. So thanks a lot and good morning. And I really appreciate Madhu sir and Dr. Acharya to give this opportunity and Shuklaji to give the opportunity to come and speak here. What we will do today is we are going to speak about, yesterday we spoke about what the smart contracts are, how is it working with blockchain and so on. So today what we will do is we'll understand what the limitations are if you go and implement this, and what are the challenges and what the future of blockchain might look like. And my colleague Swati will also continue and talk to you about what the future of smart contracts might be. So I will not step into it and let her also cover a few things. So what we will do today is we will talk about the overview. We will do the implementation challenges, limitations, intangibles of what blockchain is, and then we will see what the benefits are. Is this better? Okay. Let me take it off. Okay. Let me go back here. Yesterday we had a question. How does blockchain get implemented? Where does it get implemented? Smart contracts, where does it get implemented? How does it get implemented? So I thought I'll give you a small analogy so that you can appreciate what the implementation challenges are and what the limitations are, right? So let's think of a website. If you think of a website, what do? You write a HTML code and a JavaScript code, right, on how the website should look like. Think of that as a smart contract. Now, you can't access the page until and unless you put it on a server, right? Or if you make a copy of it, you can just click on your laptop and it opens up a page on a browser. So now the smart contract or a web page needs to be deployed on a server. In this case, it can't be any other server for web pages. It has to be a web server so that it understands the HTML language, and it has to understand the JavaScript and so on. So you need a web server for it. Similarly, for a smart contract, after you've written a contract, it needs to be deployed somewhere. Now you have a choice whether you put it on a blockchain, and now you have a choice of what type of blockchain, right? It can be a private blockchain, it can be a public blockchain. Within that you have Ethereum, you have Polygon, you have Fabric, and so on. So the choices are many. Now once you've deployed it, now you need to invoke it. You have to call for it, and then it can then get executed. Similar to a web page. If I have to do that, then I have to open up a URL. So I'll have to give www.accenture.com or something like that, or amazon.com, and then it invokes the code which you have written for it to then show that page on your browser. So similarly, your smart contract, when you have enabled it and you're put onto the server and you're put onto the platform, whichever you have chosen, now it needs to be invoked. And there are multiple ways to invoke it, and once it is invoked, you could do it from your web app and then it calls the right smart contract. It could be a web page. The applications and the use cases which you see might be multiple of those, yeah? Okay. Sorry for that echo. I'm static, I guess. So that is how, now if you can relate it, now you know it's just not a magical thing that I talk about smart contracts and it gets deployed somewhere and you don't know where it is getting deployed and it magically gets invoked and run. So you can equate it and have an analogy of a web page and then understand this, right? Now with that mental picture, we can talk about what are the implementation challenges, what are the smart contract limitations, and what are the intangibles which we can look at, and what are the benefits you can get out of it. So with that, what we will do today is very quickly talk about me, where do I come from and what do I do, and then we'll jump into it. So I have spent about 22 years in the IT industry, done some amazing disruptive projects like Aadhaar. So I was the chief architect in Aadhaar, working with Nandan, Nilkani and others to put the Aadhaar into the world map. Done some work with GSI where the Gagan satellite for our GPS was put in by our ISRO, and we said, okay, we will use our own GPS satellite than using the Galileos of America or Baidu of China. So things like that. I've been nominated or recognized as the top 30 blockchain influencers in India, and been doing some TEDx and other keynote stuff. My passion, technology. I've always been in technology, in emerging technology all over. Family, of course, everyone loves their family, and family comes first. And I'm an adventure junkie. So no other bad habits other than putting my life in danger. So I do skydives, I go into scuba diving, I do kite surfing and so on. So I can bruise myself everywhere when I go back home. And people think that my wife has beaten me up. So it's not the case, it's just that I've done all my adventure stuff there, right? Specialization, very quickly. Of course, blockchain, DLT, metaverse comes up there because I've been doing it in the past 6 years or so. I'm a multi-cloud architect. You need to deploy all of these, so you need to know what clouds are. Biometrics because of Aadhaar, doing it for US visit, EU Commission, and so on. Strategic planning and execution, enterprise architecture, and the coolest stuff is the innovation ninja. I didn't find any other name for innovation there, so I added ninja there. So I might be as sneaky as possible in the innovation space. With that, everyone loves their phone, right? So I'm not talking about this phone, which is the rotary ones which we had, but this phone. So everyone has it, so if you have it, please pick it up. Usually everyone in their college or they're in lectures say, keep your phone away. But what we will do is I'll encourage you to put your phone, bring your phone up, and we'll do one thing. You can go into menti.com and then type in the number there. Or if you can scan the QR code, I don't know if you can scan it from so far, it would be great. So go to menti.com, open your browser, and type in 48 96 86 43. So once you're ready, you will see a thumbs up or a heart there, so keep clicking it. So I'll see how many of you are here. Sorry. Yeah, there is a thumbs up at the bottom, so you just click it and be ready for it. I'll take you through the next slide. Cool. I see some participation, so I love it. So menti.com on your browser, and then the code is 48 96 86 43, or you can scan the QR code. Yeah. So I have about 40 of them. How about we get 50? I don't know if we have 50. If you have two phones, use those two phones. We can reach 50. How about that? Yeah, cool. So we have 46. I'll move on, and then if you guys are there, okay. I think, yeah, one more and we'll be at 50. I'll have to use my own thing, okay. We have 49 then. Thanks a lot for that. What we will do is, and again, I'm not a tickler for seriousness. Have you guys seen this movie, the English movie called Pacific Rim? No? Has anyone seen it? No? You can say yes, no, or you don't at all watch English movies. So, I say yes, about 4 of them, no, a lot. Don't watch English movies. With RRR winning the Academy this year, I guess you can boycott English movies. Yeah. So cool. So the Pacific Rim is a movie where you have a very big giant robo which has about 10,000 tons in its weight. Yeah. And to operate it, they didn't have artificial intelligence in the movie, so you had to operate it manually. So when you had to operate it, because it was so heavy, you needed 2 pilots to operate it, right? And the way it used to operate, and you operate that is, you had one person operating the left side of the robo and one the right side, and they had to sync their brains to operate it, right? And I want to do this exercise with you so that I get 100% of your attention so that I sync your left brain and right brain. It's a very simple exercise, takes 2 minutes so that we energize this room. I can't see serious faces. I know you guys all come from either the Navy or you come from the financial background. So let's do this exercise. So when I say head, you touch your head. Yeah. So head. Cool. When I say clap, clap. Cool. A louder clap. Cool. And when I say stomp, stomp. Cool. So let's do this one quick time. Stomp, clap, head. So your left brain is activated now. Let's activate your right brain. When I say clap, you stomp. When I say stomp, you touch your head. When I say head, you clap. Yeah? You do a cyclic. You get that? Stomp, yeah, stomp, yeah, clap, and then, yeah, clap, head, and then head, stomp. Cool. So let's do this the easy way. Stomp, we'll stomp. The easy way is no thing. Stomp, okay, clap, head. Cool, I see smiling faces. Now let's make it complicated. Stomp, cool, head, stomp, clap, cool. So we have now synced your left and right brain, and I have your 100% with it. So thanks a lot for it. Sorry, my clicker is not working. I just wanted to ask you, when I talk about smart contracts, right? And you heard about it and you learned about smart contracts yesterday. So yeah, I need to. I'll take a. Okay, I'll figure this out. Yeah, I'll take a mic. So yesterday you went through smart contract and everyone gave you an example of it and you learned about it. So can you think of any smart contracts which is an example from your real life? If you do, then type it in on your mobiles and let's see if you have something. Yesterday we had an example of vending machine. Don't put vending machine. Professor had put vending machine. So do you think, is there anything like a smart contract in our real lives which we use on a day-to-day basis? So we have few answers. Okay, ATMs, that's a nice answer. UPI transaction, that's a nice answer. Land registry, okay, it's too far, then too many parties need to come, but yeah, you could put that there. Yeah. Cool. So, fare collection, yeah, the FASTag, you pay and you can go through and use it. So, something like that. Cool. So, some good answers there. CBDC is still not in our real life yet. POC is only, but it's a great answer. So ATMs and, okay, prenups. In India, prenups are not legal, so that's okay, but somewhere very close. Um, Insurance and so on. So I think with this, I know that you guys understand what a smart contract is and what it lays down. So now I can talk about what limitations are and where do we go from here, right? So that's great stuff. So vending machine is the grandfather of all smart contracts. ATM is their newer version of it and so on. So thanks a lot for engaging with me there. So very quick recap. What makes a smart contract smart, or why is a smart contract a smart contract? Uh, One of the most basic thing is that it needs to be deterministic. And we were talking about it yesterday. What happens if it is an ambiguous or a very subjective uh, implementation? Then it can't be a smart contract, right? It has to give you an answer. It has to be yes, no. It can't be a maybe. So when it goes to a maybe, then you can't execute it. It goes into an exception, and you don't want exceptions. So you put a smart contract where you know 99% of the time it will give you a deterministic answer. Maybe because we do in procurement and supply chain, there will be ambiguity, and there will be some cases where you don't know what the answer is. That can go into an exception, and you could write a smart contract saying that if there is something which you can't determine what it is, then you can say we'll execute a exception where we talked about oracles being human oracles being the doing the audits or looking at it and then taking care of it. Yeah. So it has to be deterministic. It has to be a code written to make it deterministic. Then it has to be autonomous so that you don't need any manual interventions or your governance. So it has to run by itself based on what you have written. And the last thing is it needs to be trustless. So why it needs to be trustless is once you've given the code and you ask it to run somewhere, it has to run without any issues or you saying you have a doubt that it will be executed the way I've written it, right? And hence it enables trustless. So for example, your legal contracts which are there, you trust it because any law, you take it to any court in India, it will be valid, right? Because you trust it. It need not be that I've written it in, or I've done this in Bangalore and now I'm in Delhi and I don't know if the Delhi court is going to work on it and then say it is fine or not. You are not worried about it. You know you can bring it here and then work it out. All you do is in the clause say that the jurisdiction is within the premises you want because you don't want to travel because the going to the court and coming back is a long process, right? 10 years, 12 years, you keep going to the court. So that is why you need these smart contracts to be all these three to make it not smart as in artificial intelligence, smart as in that you can trust it and it can execute the way you want it. Cool. So I guess this works now. What is the current state of smart contracts then? It is very experimental, right? So everyone are trying to use it in different use cases and use it in different ways to see how we can implement smart contracts. And then the newer languages are being used, newer ways of implementing it. Then you're looking at privacy and how do I make sure that the privacy doesn't get violated. So there are a lot of experiments going on. People are working on it. Like yesterday, one of the speakers were speaking and he was working on the layer 1 where the smart contracts get deployed. It can do parallelism once it's deployed, and then you can have more privacy, which his colleague was doing, and so on, right? So all of these are very important, and the current state is that we are working on it and we continue to improve, right? And you saw that it just started in 1996 when Nicholas actually first coined the smart contract, and now with Bitcoin it became much more popular, and with Ethereum it's now a little more forward, moved ahead. But we still have a lot more to do, but it is changing, and a rapid implementation and experimentation is happening in this space. With that, I want to, again, don't keep your phones away. I love your phones. So what we are saying is there is DAOs and there is decentralized autonomous organizations which are there, right? And they run on smart contracts. The main important use case with smart contract getting implemented in the future, according to me, is DAOs. You don't need people. You don't need a CEO to run certain things. You don't need politicians. You don't need a prime minister. You don't need a government. Yeah, I'm going too far, but no one can stop me because I'm here. But all of those are very important because we want it to become as autonomous as possible, right? And smart contracts are the base foundation to it, right? And do you then say, will DAOs become the future of organizations and governments and countries? So I have few of them saying yes, no, and few of them don't know what is DAO. So we'll just tell you what DAO is because I've got majority of them, or 12 of them who don't know what DAO is. So the full form of DAO is Decentralized Autonomous Organization. That means that the entire organization is run on a code. So there is no person, there is nothing. It's purely coded, and you're given the ability to vote and say, okay, I want to vote for this policy, I don't want this policy, I want to invest on it, I don't want to invest on it, I want to hire Deepak Lalan, I don't want to hire Deepak Lalan. All of those are given to a general people who are there, who have the token, who have the ability to vote, and they can vote and say yes or no, right? So in a traditional organization, what happens is you, or in a government, you vote one person, and then that person then takes all the decisions on behalf of it for the, okay, this is bad. Okay, let me come back. I can't stay in a dais like this, so you can't see me and my hands, so I'm very animated that way. I'll take that back, yeah. Can I get the mic again? Acha, so till they get. So it is all run by code, right? That's what DAO is. And everything is a code, and you get the opportunity to then vote up and down, and then based on it, it runs. With that in mind, and that's what DAOs are, do you then think, and everyone loves Uber, right? Uber or Ola, and they have revolutionized the transport we have. Do you think today, whatever Uber is, can I kill Uber and say, okay, I don't like Uber and I want to do something else better than Uber? Can I do that? Yes, no. Yeah, who thought that we will never use Google? With ChatGPT, we are saying we don't want Google anymore. Yeah, because we get more concise answers. So this is a more redundant question. So most of them say yes. And again, going back with this concept of DAO. Now what is happening is all the control of what Uber does, what the fees is, how do I get the onboard a driver, when should I put a search price, when should I not put a search price. And if you guys have seen this wonderful series in Netflix called Super Pumped. So it's a nice Uber story there. So there, if you see, they did something called as grey balling. So there were auditors who were there, and they never let the cabs go to those auditors, and they figured it out. If this guy is coming at this pace, then they know that this guy is there. So they could hack the system to doing what they wanted to do. Now everything is under Uber's control, right? So how do I then take that off? You can take it off by implementing DAO, which runs smart contracts. Every decision which is taken is run by a smart contract. I want to onboard a driver, smart contract will onboard it based on his driving license, which you give with an oracle, which we can look at it. Or I want to increase the search price. I want to put a surge price there, or I want to remove a driver. I want to give service to a certain city or not give it. It was all based on the CEO's decision. Now you can leave it on a code to do it. And that is what DAOs will bring in future. Just imagine how powerful it will be that it is fully driven on people who are interested in it, and then you vote it, and then it does run it on your behalf autonomously. So there is already an organization or multiple of those which have now started killing, where did it go? Which has started killing Uber. This is called Drive, which is run totally on a smart contract. There's no person in it, there is no CEO in it. It's a co-op, totally run by drivers, run by users, run by a smart contract put on a blockchain. How amazing is it? Did you think this was possible? It is already doing it, and Drive has already its presence in India. And if you guys have not used it, use it. You don't pay Uber, you pay directly to the drivers and so on, right? So that's another example. Now, based on DAO, a little more insight to it, if you go a little deeper, there is DeFi, which is decentralized finance, right? And that's also becoming popular. So now your entire treasury, your entire finance department can be run on a code. Yeah, and you want to make sure there are complex things which you want to do it. We are learning. We are not there, but it is still happening. And one of the most complex and successful example of it is called Maker. Maker DAO is a DAO which equates your cryptocurrency. You deposit your crypto. It gives you a DAO token, and the DAO token is equal to $1. And now dollars, the cryptocurrency, you know, it goes up and down like crazy. I was a billionaire a couple of years back. Now I'm not even holding 20K per Bitcoin. So life is so bad. I thought I'll retire, but now I have to work a little more. So I'll just give you a good glimpse on what MakerDAO is from a much better person than me. So please hear this for 2 minutes and then we'll come back.
Is exactly what it sounds like. It's a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization, and its purpose is to make DAI. DAI is a digital dollar backed by locked up crypto assets like ETH, BAT, WBTC, KNC, and more. And what Maker figured out years ahead of the explosive rise of DeFi is that a stablecoin could be established by incentivizing locking up more value in what was once called a CDP, or a collateralized debt position. Now today, CDPs are called vaults. But if you think about it, a stablecoin is normally backed by dollars. But in crypto, we have these hugely volatile assets. So how do you do it? Well, here's how it works. Say I own ETH, and I believe the value of ETH will continue to rise over time. Now, I don't sell ETH because I believe it's a store of value, like BTC or gold. But if I can borrow against the value of ETH in DAI, then I can have the best of both worlds. I can remain exposed to the upside of ETH long term, while spending less of that value in the short term with DAI. While I've minted or borrowed that DAI, I pay an interest rate just like you would borrowing from a bank. But it's all automated by the code in Maker. In MakerDAO, you can deposit and lock up your ETH, as well as other popular liquid crypto assets. And in exchange, you can borrow up to 66% of every dollar you deposit. And this means if you deposit $100 worth of ETH, you can borrow up to 66 DAI, but the code ensures I keep my word of maintaining that loan, or else I will be liquidated by Maker. If I don't hold up my end of the bargain, my ETH is then auctioned to others in the Maker community willing to buy it, so that Maker can remain solvent and pay back my owed debt. And the key takeaway here is MakerDAO remains one of the most successful DeFi projects built on Ethereum, with just under $200 billion in TVL, while nearly 900 million DAI have been minted to date. Unlike your fiat, DAI is digitally scarce, and it's traceable on the Ethereum blockchain. But because MakerDAO uses game theory to incentivize borrowers to lock up their valued collateral in exchange for an over-collateralized digital dollar, DAI has effectively become one of the most trusted, trustless digital forms of money. Despite the volatile markets over the last few years, including a 95% drawdown in the price of ETH from all-time highs, DAI's pegged to the US dollar held. And that's a testament to some of the best incentive design in the DeFi game. You've been watching DeFi 101. Do be sure and check out the other videos in the series and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the new videos as they drop. And above all, stay safe out there.
Yeah. So that's, and it's pretty complicated that you need to take a cryptocurrency, peg it to a dollar. If you don't, if you pull the money out, then, or if you are not able to pay it or liquidate it, then it can do it for you, and that way maintaining it and all of those. And believe it or not, all of this is run on a smart contract. And till today, from yesterday to today, the notion was that there is one smart contract and you run it. But if you'd see, the maker has so many smart contracts, each of them talking to each other, right? So it's not just one smart contract and you write that, but it is multiple smart contracts talking to each other. So another analogy for this is, so the another analogy for this in the technical realm is microservices. Today everything is run on microservices. Think of smart contracts as a microservice, and you run each of these as a service, and then you call them as and when needed. So if the maker has to work, these are the number of smart contracts it needs to run, and it needs to interact with each other. And it's not just one simple smart contract. Yeah, so that is how smart contracts are, and that's how complex it can get. But it is not very complex for us to implement many more, right? So, and what happens is you have three types of players or stakeholders in Maker. You have a governor who then governs and tells and votes and tells you that these are the policies we will vote on, and this is what they should be doing next, and what the roadmap should be. Then you have maintainers like coders and guys who run the smart contract. And then you have users like you and me who would want to buy DAO and then bet on it. Yeah. So that is Maker for you. And very, very successful in its implementation. So these are the two awesome examples in our real life where smart contracts have hit. I know you guys have come here for procurement and supply chain, but this gives you a good idea that the world there is infinite possibilities of implementing it and not getting stuck with a few nuances which we might have. Yeah, cool. So with that, there are some implementation challenges, right? Nothing is fully hunky-dory. All great stuff talked now, but let's talk about some challenges which we have. From yesterday, we've always said smart contracts are like Superman. So nothing can beat it other than kryptonite. And this is the kryptonite it has now you need to be worried about. So the first one is standardization. There are so many experiments happening. It's in the early days that everyone has their own version of it, right? So I love Python. Can I write it in Python? I love Solidity. Can I write it in Solidity? I love JavaScript. Can I write it in JavaScript? So everyone has their own version. Every platform has its own view of it. And everyone wants to do everything. So there is no standardization yet. And we need to bring all of them together and standardize this so that they can become much more easier for us to look at. I'm not saying that it has to come back to one standard. It can be a couple of standards, but it has to collate itself into being using a very couple of languages only, using couple of platforms only, and then ensuring that there are people who can adopt it, right? And then making it very easy for it. So that's that. Then the second one is security. We have a lot of problems with security, right? And we spoke about it a little yesterday. But I want to talk to you about a story. And this is a story which we've been hearing from our childhood days, where there is a shepherd and grazing his sheep, and he always gets bored. So he goes on top of the mountain and starts shouting, "Lion, lion," or wolf, whatever you guys like, a wolf or a lion. Take your fancy towards it. So he keeps shouting, and then the villagers come running, and then they find nothing. And then again, a couple of weeks later, again he does the same thing, and he has his laugh out. And then really a tiger comes or a wolf comes, and then he shouts, and villagers come to rescue him, and then he gets eaten up too, very sad, and his sheep. So the same story is applied to the first smart contract or DAO which was written. This is called the DAO hack, and that was the first security hack, right? And it's the same story. Now you can relate it. So when the blockchain came out and then they said smart contracts, everyone felt foolproof, Superman, nothing can beat it. Whatever we implement is going to be super secure. So whatever crap I write, it'll still be secure. They were so arrogant and so confident about it that blockchain hai to kuch nahi hone wala. So, and then they went and implemented the DAO. And the DAO's premise was that it collects money from multiple investors. You get a pool of money, and then you invest it on anything you want. And then like any other DAO, you had a voting mechanism to say, okay, we will invest in A, B, C, and then people used to vote and say B, and you voted on B, right? And this one all was written in the smart contract. Now, these guys were super arrogant, super crazy, and said, blockchain, nothing will happen. Then one of the guys said, you have a error, or there is a loophole in your code. Please don't release it or go and fix it. These guys said, bullshit, nothing is going to happen. It's blockchain, it's smart contract, what will happen? And then they let it in, and the guy exploited it, and he took out $50 million out of it. Just one single line of code, and that killed the DAO. And it also created something called as a fork in Ethereum called the Classic, and the one which we use today. Because they were still so arrogant, they said, nahi, piche jayenge, but blockchain chhodta nahi hai, to go back. So purists remained with Ethereum the way it is, saying that it was your code, it was not Ethereum. The guys who lost 50 million said, we'll create a branch and we'll go back and get our 50 million, because go back some 20 blocks back and we'll say nothing happened after that. So that was the DAO hack, right? Now, so that's a big problem with smart contract. I'll just show you one example, right? So if you go to etherscan.io, and this is what is happening on the fly, right? So if I take the latest transaction which has happened and I click it, okay, this doesn't have, so let me go back. I'll take the second transaction. Okay, this has the thing. So I clicked on a transaction, it says this is the transaction, and so on, right? So if I click on the one of the things and then go to contracts, and I can see the entire code here. So it is open to everyone. So it is not kept closed. So everyone knows what you have written. So this is how the DAO hack happened. So you have written a code and people can see it. Oh, this is of course public blockchain. If you keep it more private with the enterprise blockchain, maybe you can't. But what I'm saying is the security is a big concern. When you implement it, you need to make sure you're 100%, you've tested everything, and it's foolproof. And that is what you need to do when you write your smart contracts. And everyone can see it, right? They're calling another smart contract, and so on. So you can click on it and then figure it out, and so on. So you can read the entire code. Nothing is top secret. So can Coca-Cola recipe put on smart contract? No, because everyone can see it. And that is the biggest security concern which we have with smart contract, that the source code is accessible, people can see what's happening, and then they can take a decision, right? Then comes scalability. Though smart contract is not directly related to it, but smart contracts trigger something called as consensus, so that everyone has to agree, and that has a problem with scalability, right? And can I do thousands of transactions on it? No, not now. At least when yesterday we spoke about 160 transactions per second. Those are all lab driven, but when it comes to real life, we can't achieve it. So there are experiments going on and we need to work on it. So again, when you're writing it, you need to make sure take the use case, figure out if this use case requires a real smart contract or not. If it does require a smart contract, does it support your performance you require? And if it meets all of those, then you implement it. Otherwise, go back to a traditional database with three-tier architecture. It does a wonderful job. So the biggest challenge in my career, at least when I'm as a lead or a person who talks on blockchain, is to say, don't use blockchain. 95% of the time I tell my clients, blockchain is not right for you right now. And when I say no, they want it even more. So that's a sad part, but that is what it is. So that's scalability. Then you have privacy. As you saw, you could see who, it's a pseudo privacy, right? So I can, if I go back to my Etherscan, I know from where did it come and where did it go. And you can see all of those. And if I know exactly who the wallet owner of this is, I know who it is. So that's another big problem with it, right? Because it's open, and if it is public, you know it. And in enterprise, there is nothing called as private until and unless you put a channel and so on. But you already know who those players are. So privacy is a big concern. So you need to look at how do I address privacy. And there are techniques for it nowadays with zero knowledge proofs and so on coming in, which can handle privacy. But as of now, it's still a very complex problem to solve. And the final implementation challenge which we have is debugging. Now, you heard this nice story of me about the DAO hack. How do I debug it, right? In a decentralized, distributed computing environment, how do I debug it? Debugging it even in a normal single computer itself is like tricky. Now you have it all over the place, and I have to debug it. Is even more crazier. So while implementing it and making sure that this is all foolproof, debugging becomes another big challenge in the computer terms. So these are the implementation challenges. Now let's look at limitations. Yeah. Limitations, though I said MakerDAO is complex, but it is well defined and it's in the boundary, right? I have a token, I have a crypto which I deposit. There is no ambiguity in it. There is no delay in it, right? But in our supply chain and in procurement, there is always some delay. There is always some external factor which has some new nuances which bring to the table. How do I factor those in a binary terms, right? That becomes a very, very challenging limitation for me. And that is when yesterday we spoke about that we need human oracles, you need external oracles, and so on to then look at the external interfaces and external nuances to be brought in to do whatever we need to do to get a deterministic answer. And get a deterministic answer that whatever code I run in whichever node across the globe, the answer needs to be the same, right? If 2 plus 2 is 4, everywhere 2 plus 2 needs to be 4. Right? If someone gives 5, that means we don't come to a consensus and then we can't run it. So ensuring and getting that complexity answered in the cases of procurement and supply chain is a little more tougher. So we need to think about it in a wider gamut and say how do we address it, and then write smart contracts which are very, very easy to implement and easy to adopt. Then comes your disputes. Right? Anywhere you have humans in it, you have disputes. You can't live without it, right? Let it be family, let it be organizations, let it be anything else, you'll end up with disputes. So your smart contracts are interfacing with real life where humans are working, and disputes will happen. Though we say that the disputes can be reduced to bare minimum, but disputes are still there. And when you have disputes, how do I handle it with smart contracts and blockchain is a big question. And that's a limitation. And we spoke about, again, human oracles to come in and then try and solve that, right? And you need those external interfaces to come in and then help you with it. Then comes your regulation. Not all governments and regulatory bodies are up for automation, and the politicians and others in the bureaucracy are not yet ready to give away whatever they hold dearer to them. So till the regulations become okay, and we still don't regard smart contracts legal yet in most of the nations, right? In few of the places, they are just an enabler to help you with the proof, but they are not fully legal contracts yet. So regulations need to catch up, and that's another limitation. Can I implement it? Yes, no, can't say, right? And depends on the regulation. And the last thing is flexibility. How much flexibility do I have? So one of the cases could be, okay, I've ordered 10,000 shoe pairs, right? And I ordered all of them white, but then they sent me 100 of them blue. Now, how do I create that flexibility in a smart contract which is expecting everything to be white sneakers? So that's the flexibility we will lose, because it's a very confined binary of yes, no, right? And that is when you need to now look. I'm not saying it can't be done. Now when you write a smart contract, you need to be aware that you need to think of such exceptions which are there, and then write and accommodate to that exceptions and that flexibility. That is very, very critical while writing your smart contracts. Okay, so that ends our limitation. Now let's go to intangibles, right? All of these are tangibles. You can see it, you can feel it, you can work on it. Now, the intangibles, which are future dimensions which you now need to look at, is governance. And we spoke about DAOs, right? So how do I govern it? Who has the right to modify the smart contract? Who can then accept it? How does it get accepted? What should be my roadmap towards modifying it? Are all very, very, very important. And then governing it. So writing a smart contract to govern another smart contract is not practical as of now, but we need to look at it too. And those are the intangibles you need to think. That is where you have things like creating a special purpose company to maintain the blockchain environment, right? So you create a spin-off company, you have all the big brothers coming in and then agreeing on it, and then they have the administrative control. At least in the private side and the enterprise side, it made it easy, but in the public and permissionless, it becomes much more crazier. And that is when the game theory and all of those need to come in, where you're motivated to then not fool the system. And that's very important with the governance. Then you have interoperability, right? So another question to you guys on your Menti. Hopefully you have not forgotten your mobile buddy. So go back to your mobile buddy and answer this question. How many large blockchain networks will be there in future? You think 1, 2, many, 5, 3? What do you feel? Yeah. Like everything else, it will consolidate into 2, right? Pepsi and Coca-Cola, Uber and Ola. So, but ultimately it will be many, right? So if you have multiple blockchain networks in the world which will operate at different industries, what do you think the biggest challenge will be? To talk to each other. If they don't allow it to talk to each other, then it will become a problem. And that is where the interoperability comes in play. And that's an intangible right now. That's a future thing which we need to answer. We have done so many open source programs. The startups are working on it to make the interoperability much more smoother. Double spends become much more crazier because you're spending it in, you're minting it in one network, you're spending it in another network. How do I ensure that you don't go back to your original network and spend it again on another network? So all of these are complications which will come in. And how do I ensure that in future, when you have multiple big blockchains which the world will operate on, can talk to each other? Yeah? Cool. So then comes AI. We spoke about it a little yesterday. Our friend from NITI spoke to you yesterday, and Dr. Samsundar had a different opinion on AI being with blockchain, but this is going to come. How do you enable it? When do you enable it? Can AI write a smart contract based on certain things, right? You're never writing a smart contract. Smart contract is written by an AI based on what it is and deploys it and then executes it. All of those are possibilities of future, which is very critical for us to embrace as we go in. And the final one is sustainability. Today, everyone is talking about sustainability. Yeah, I went and bought an electric car because of the peer pressure I had. I'm not a tree hugger, but I had to buy it. So sustainability is a very, very important aspect, and blockchain was notorious for it until recently when Ethereum went to POS. And now everyone are thinking and talking and doing everything they can to ensure that it is much more greener. So again, open up your mobile buddy, phone a friend, and answer this question. Do you think blockchains are much more greener now? Yes, no, yes, okay. Bitcoin can never change, it will still be as power hungry as it can be. It's like the Bakasur of our ages, keeps on eating, sleeps, never wakes up. It never went back to 90K. Made me poor. Cool. So yeah, we are getting closer to it. There is a long journey for us, but sustainability is a thing we need to think of, right? I keep telling my team, when we do Teams call or video call, right? We keep saying that, hey, you're traveling on a flight to another place like this and doing a physical conference versus me doing it on the video. Now the video, the carbon footprint the video enabled has, because of the internet, because of the power we need to give, so much of data has to flow in back and forth. All of that has to happen in between. It's almost 50% of what it would have if I had taken a flight and come. My footprint is almost there, right? We would have thought, okay, array video on kar liya, chal jayega, but the video, you're turning it on, you're laying that cable, the fiber optics, the plastic which goes in. If you take all of those in account, it is almost equal. So using and traveling is still okay. So sustainability is important. You need to look at it, and is a very important dimension for the future, which is intangible. With that comes our benefits, right? I gave you a glorified blockchain, smart contracts. Then I said, what are its problems? Now, Eileen, let's lift our spirits up and say, yeah, we should look at smart contracts. The future looks really bright for smart contracts, starting with intelligence. Yeah, so you can automate things, you can make it more intelligent, you can use AI on it. You don't need manual interventions and so on. So it is very, very critical for us and the future of smart contracts that we start building intelligent smart contracts. So we'll coin something new. We'll call it ISC, Intelligent Smart Contracts for the future, yeah? And then transparency, yeah? As we go and build this, we want it to be more and more transparent in our life. We don't want, if you look at governments today, right? The entire reason we brought in this entire concept of government is to ensure that we know what our public servants are going to do for us, right? But it's now the other way around. They know everything about us, but we don't know anything about them. So if I spend 5 rupees somewhere else, they know it. If I don't pay my income tax, they know it. So the surveillance is ulta. We should be seeing what they are doing. Instead, they are seeing what we are doing. So ultimately, we want to make sure that the smart contracts or the DAOs we put in ensures that transparency is both ways. It's just not me giving my privacy out and transparency out, but I want to also see what they are doing for me. And with smart contracts and stuff like that, we will get into it. Okay, then comes efficiency. No brainer. We've always talked about automation, and smart contracts can get executed if certain preconditions are met and so on. So efficiency is definitely going to be a game changer as we go in. And as we go into the future, the exceptions are going to be lesser, right? For example, if I go into a restaurant, I know now it is going to be neat. They are going to give it to me in a plate. They are going to give me, there are only 5 paneer variations you can do. That's it. Now we have hit all the kinds of things. So all your exceptions are almost gone. You know a standard operating procedure, you will hit a 99% without exceptions. As expected, you will get it. So there will be no exception. So efficiencies will only increase as we get into it. Then comes security. We spoke about it. And how do we address it is a question. But we will definitely address it. We are getting smarter in addressing it, and I'll show you a solution for it on how you can address security in the future. And we also talk about quantum crypto, right? So today you're saying whatever keys you use can be broken by the quantum crypto later with quantum computers. Can I avoid that is the question. So yes, you can with quantum crypto, post-quantum cryptography in it. Then comes programmability. We all spoke about CBDCs. Tomorrow when CBDCs are implemented all across the globe, I want programmability in my smart contract, or allows me to do it, right? So, yeah, it is asking me to breathe also, intelligent. So if you take these coins, and then I want to, like, let's take the vaccination, right? So we gave you some kind of subsidy saying that you go get yourself vaccinated, and we said here is the thing, or your LPG, right? Now I can program it in the smart contract that this has to be spent only for certain things. Now I give pocket money to my kids, then I can say use 50% of it to buy books, 10% to eat chocolates or whatever food you want to eat, another 20% to watch a movie. I can program it, and I don't need some. And we are already talking about softwares which are low code, no code. So you don't need to worry about you understanding and coding. You just have to drag and drop. So the future wallets will be that when I give kids my pocket money, I program it to say, okay, only can buy books. How cool will that be? Or when you're given your salary by your employee, then you say you can't spend it on something else and spend it back on their own products. So, and then finally cost saving. Because you're doing all of these, you will save cost, and these are the benefits, and the future looks very bright with all these 6 elements. Now let's go to solution, and this is my last 5 minutes. I know I've taken some extra time. Swati might have to hurry up a little more on future, I guess. So the solution is pretty simple, right? And we have these 4 big problems. We have standardization, we have security, we have privacy, we have sustainability, and we have governance. So if you keep these are my limitations and challenges of smart contract as I go in, what kind of solutions or what are we working right now to eliminate or negotiate or do a workaround around this? The first one is you have external auditors like Certic and SciStack, which can audit your smart contract before it goes in, right? And you get a little more comfort saying that whatever smart contract I've written is much more reliable, is a little more non-hackable, right? And you get it certified by them and saying after they go through a lot. So if you start doing those, then you can look at standardization, because there is one body looking at it, and then you could go closer to a standardization method. Or you could, because it is what it is, it gives you security. It can't give you privacy because you're exposing your code to another person to certify it, right? And of course sustainability, because you can enforce them to look at certain things and say you could write a code better. Instead of calling something, you can call something else, and making it a little more CPU free or memory free, so that it doesn't burn too much of power. And then in governance, because you're going to a central auditor, you can put some kind of governance in it. So that's one part. The other one is interoperability. You're already looking at Polkadot, Hyperledger, Cacti, and so on, which helps you do interconnections or cross blockchain network connections. Yeah, and that is where again you can see that standardization, security, and governance can be answered by it. Yeah. Of course, privacy and sustainability goes for a toss because instead of now running one blockchain, you're running 5 blockchains because you need interoperability between them. And privacy also goes for toss. Now your data is not just exposed in one network, you're now exposing it to 2 networks or 3 networks. So that is where it goes for a toss. And then privacy preserving techniques like you want your privacy to be handled. There are techniques like zero knowledge proof, Zether and zero cash and zero coin and all of those which are implementing certain things like this homomorphic encryption and all of those which can address your privacy. And then finally you have newer consensus coming in like POS, and there is the newest one called proof of space, which is also coming. So I'll leave that as a homework. Since we are all in the academic region here, I should give you some homework, right? So why don't you guys go and Google or ask ChatGPT what proof of space is and learn it for yourself. With that, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you hearing me out with your left and right brain synced. Thank you, and open for any questions.
In future, which platform will be more useful or adaptable by industries or government, like private, public, or hybrid?
We spoke yesterday, hybrid. You knew the answer anyways. So hybrid is what I feel should be.
Why?
Because you want certain things to be exposed where the world can see, and you want few things to be secretive to a certain organizations or within the organization. And the hybrid gives you that ability to do both and get the best of both worlds. And if you take any government work right now, it's all black box, right? And you want to expose only few things out, and you want to still keep few things in. Hybrid allows you to do that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You need to. Yeah, you can take this. I'll take the other. No, I'll be at the.
Sir, is there any regulator as of now, or anybody certifying this one, these smart contracts like we have, say for the food FSSAI or something for ISO, and for this one also, so that people get the confidence that yeah, it is trustable and we can go ahead with that.
Okay, so the idea is to take the industry standards and then apply it or write it in your smart contract, right? For example, for supply chain, you have GS1 standards, which you can bring onto the supply chain smart contracts and the data standards to bring that in. And from the security perspective and all of those, you have companies like Certic and SciStax to help you certify them. So as we go into each industry, let it be pharma or health or food and stuff, you should just borrow the standards from there and then start implementing. That's the quick win. Ultimately, they will all converge, and then we might have a standard which an ISO or W3 or someone will write it, and we'll have to follow it. But for now, one thing which is happening right away is the digital identity. So you have W3C writing that standard so everyone can use one standard for identity. We will see that for every industry as they all come together and the adoption happens.
Right. Thank you, sir. And one more thing, sir, that transparency, and you have written that trust less earlier. So
Yeah.
why shouldn't it be trusted or trustworthy?
Yeah, trustless. Even if I don't trust you, when you execute it, I will end up being happy, right? So it has to run in a very trustless environment without any extra um, work, and that is why it needs to be. So when you write your smart contract, even if a hacker gets it, you should be okay with it, and that is why it needs to be trustless. That whomever gets it, you are pretty confident that it will run.
So on the other way, it is trusted for me, but for
Yeah,
everyone not
as soon
trusted.
as you let it go,
So then it is
so when you
trustless.
let your pigeon go out of your net, you're thinking that no one will shoot it, and then you hope it will come back to you and have your chana later. But yeah, that's what it is. That is why it is trustless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of people from public purchase over here.
Yeah.
So, and public purchase, there's a huge element of ownership of responsibility and fixation of responsibility. So, in a smart contract like environment, would if something goes wrong, is the policy maker or an internal, a senior official in the public enterprise responsible, the coder responsible, or the auditor responsible?
All.
So, so
That's the
fixation of
most
responsibilities.
modest answer I can give you.
But that's a very practical problem.
Correct. So it will end up being that, right? Because nothing is perfect. Someone will find something. The answer is being as flexible as you can to change it very quickly, look at it, and then address it. So you will end up having problems because you wouldn't have thought through everything. So everyone, and that is why you need a special purpose companies to run the blockchain network, so that if the indemnity or any such clause comes in, it is limited to that company and not everyone else.
And that problem will get overcomplicated when we bring in AI with it.
Exactly. But also get restricted if you do that, and you don't know. Wait and watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Excuse me, sir.
Then initially we were told that third party is not required. So again third party will be required, these lawyers and everyone, because the responsibility has to be fixed, and then again we'll be going to the court.
So never we are going to get eliminated with the intermediaries, but the role of the intermediaries will come
Brought
down,
down. Okay.
or it will get automated. But in few cases where the exceptions are there, you will need someone to adjudicate that, right? And that will still be there. But what this will bring is a strong audit logs which are immutable, which cannot be changed. So you can say, if Deepak executed this, he used his private key to execute it, he can't say, I didn't execute it. I might have executed a wrong thing, but I can never deny saying I never executed. So those are the things which you bring to the table. And there are still problems which will never go away.
Yeah,
You'll still need someone. Hopefully 30 years from now.
Yeah, and
We
the
will-
overall, my observation is the way, because we are from Sports Authority of India, both of us, and we are into sports, where the human touch is much more important. Physical
than-
activity,
yes.
sports.
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
So my observation is that gradually we'll be absolutely, the interaction, the compassion, is going to completely, it will be
Away.
completely away. It will be completely machine.
So why don't you think it this way? All your administrative work which you have to sign 10,000 papers, go and submit something, which is taking away your time from being closer to an athlete and motivating that person, you will get all that time back to be more connected to that person, because all of these will be automated, and you will do the right thing
That
for
is
that
true.
person.
That is
so
true. We'll be able to
that's
squeeze
the
out more time
positive-
for the athletes that way.
That's the positive I see.
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. One more thing. You told your system is not foolproof. Somebody lost $50 million in this process. Okay, so why you are wasting so many brilliant minds and money for this to lose $50 million? Instead, you can use your brains to eradicate poverty or to educate people.
How can I answer that question? Rich people do rich things, which we can't understand, I guess. Again, the idea was to collate money from different people, right? And then run it in a way which is more democratic in its nature. The idea is, and if you go and now look at UN, the 16 SDGs, and most of the places blockchain now plays an important role. And when blockchain comes in, smart contract is there and is trying to solve world hunger, vaccination problems, serialization. All of those are happening. But the economy itself is like that the rich do what rich do and poor do what poor do. And there is a flow between them, which is unavoidable. Sorry, I don't know how else to answer that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Deepak?
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, yeah, there. Okay.
I just agree with what officials from SAI has told. You yourself has given the example of it is better to travel than to do the work through the video conferencing.
Yeah.
And really it's going to be a very tough world now
Of
in the
course.
coming days. Though the things are automated now and it's going on. But one thing I just would like to know that you have given the example of some hacking done for some $1 million in one of the case. So then who bears that loss? Whether all involved in that blockchain or
Have to
or
share it,
everybody,
yeah.
every stakeholder? No?
Now, like, for
So then
example,
there
the
is a
bank
great
went
risk.
down.
Uh-huh.
All the players in the bank with the SVB are facing it, right? And the government will then come in, and then you are the taxpayer who has to then pay an extra tax for it to then bring it back to the normal thing. So everyone in the network bears it. That is why you had this fork. So people said, okay, we have to take it with a pinch of salt. You guys did a foolish thing. We will continue, take that 50 million loss. And some of them were arrogant and said, no, we will just roll back few blocks and then start another fork and where I get my 50 million back and then I'll do what you want. And no one supported them. And they are defunct, almost defunct Ethereum Classic. So, yeah. One more and then I'll have to let my colleagues also talk.
Just to these two earlier questions and a corollary of that, the fact is that you said with so much regulation and automation, we'll become more efficient, but don't you think as human beings we'll become unsmart? Because the point is that, we won't be able to apply ourselves in individual cases which need human intervention.
Again, when the computers came out, we were all very afraid that it'll take our job off and then we might not have that human interactions and so on, right? And then we did that with the digital thing too. When we said, okay, video conference came, we might not travel, we'll lose the face-to-face connection and so on. So you'll always have that challenge and that apprehension in your mind. But we as humans have the ability to work around it. Like what I was telling the gentleman is, now you have more time. Now you invest more in, than doing the administrative, moving paperwork, than doing the real work where you're helping, looking at the athlete and then taking help. So I feel we will adapt to the newer technology to give us more time. My question is, we'll have so much of time, but our productivity will be so low that we don't know what to do. That's my big apprehension. Right now only we are like spending so much of our time scrolling on social media, which is meaningless, and we are addicted to it. Now if I take off half of your work, you will do more of these nonsense bit. So which is a bigger challenge than I'll not be able to do something for me. So that's a bigger worry. Hope that answered. I'm becoming a Sadguru here, giving philosophical questions than technical, I guess. Okay, thank you, and I really appreciate your time.
So now requesting Dr. Madhuranjan Kumar to hand over the memento to Shri Deepak Lalan. Thank you so much, sir.